Good morning and welcome to the Board of Trustees special meeting of the board regarding School Construction Accelerator Program. Thank you for joining us today. As per policy 204.3, special board meetings, a special meeting of the board may be called by the chair of the board, a majority of the trustees, or the minister. And waiver of notice under Section 3 of Board Procedures Regulation must be sent at least 2 days before the special meeting. And in Board Procedures Regulation 4 states, notwithstanding subsections 1 to 3, a special meeting may be held without notice being given under this section if every trustee agrees to waive the requirements of subsections 1 to 3. This meeting was called for late afternoon yesterday, and unanimous approval for this meeting has been received, and so we are gathering this morning. And so the agenda is before you, and I would like to call for approval of the agenda. Allison.
I actually have a comment in regards to the email that was sent for what would be covered during this meeting, and it did say the Accelerator Capital Program as well as the Lethbridge School Division Capital Plan. So I don't see the capital plan on the agenda. Thanks.
My apologies. Okay, we can add that to the agenda. It was in the, so it can add it to the title of that. That is fine, because that is captured within this conversation. Thank you, Allison. Any other feedback?
Yep, and then the other comment that I would say is that our capital plan is not something that we need to discuss in camera, so I would ask for the rationale for these two items to be in camera.
The rationale for you are correct in that there does need to be public debate about these things. The purpose for having an in-camera opportunity for discussion, because we are talking about schools and staffing, it will give opportunity to discuss, what's the word I'm looking for? Sensitive topics freely, and then to be able to go into public and have a fulsome discussion of concerns and direction after this in-camera conversation. So that is the thoughts behind that.
Okay, I didn't know that there was staffing that we were going to be addressing when we're talking about the accelerator plan and the capital plan.
Can I have other input on this?
Yeah, I would say on the, in terms of moving in camera, I think there's an opportunity because we've got trustees with varying understanding of where we're at in relation to the school accelerator or the school construction accelerator program. So I think there needs to be a conversation there. We are going to be talking about specific schools and where they lie in that. And I think it would be important for trustees to have some time to be able to make sure we have whatever information that they feel that they need. And then I would say that we come out of camera, and then you're exactly right. We discuss those two items, and we can have that same fulsome conversation. I just would be concerned about, we've got some people who aren't quite up to speed. We've got people who are, Christine's just got a limited time to join us, that sort of thing. So that would be my view, that it might be more efficient and easier based on talking about specific schools and the plan to have that conversation, get everybody up to speed, and then be in public.
And I'll just continue to say that I believe that both the school construction accelerator program is public information, and as well as the capital plan. So if we if it is the will of the board to go into camera, the pieces that are not something that would be in camera, I would be asking for it to be the wholesome discussion that we need to be having as publicly elected officials.
Thank you, Allison. Jenny.
Sorry for being late. It was picture day. And sorry for walking into the middle of this conversation. From what I pick up, we're discussing whether or not it should be in camera. I would like to express also a desire to not move in camera unless the conversation has come to a place where we immediately recognize that it needs to go in camera. I think that this is planning that we've heard a lot from our community, and our community needs to hear back from us in our advocacy and in our strategy. And as far as the board's responsibility to be accessing that funding that comes through that accelerated program, I have the desire for the public to see the work that we are endeavoring in doing that and to give that reassurance to the public.
Excellent. Thank you, Jenny. Tina, can I have you please take the agenda off the screen just so we can see Craig, Christine, and Christina who are joining us online? Excellent. Thank you. Craig, your hand is up.
Yeah, I would agree that we should probably start an open meeting and continue unless there's something that arises, which we could then go into in camera, but I would prefer it discussed openly.
Certainly. Thank you. Okay, so we have heard input from some trustees. Is there anyone else who's wishing to speak to this before we go to a vote? Tyler,
What are we voting on?
we're voting on approval of the agenda.
Approval of the agenda?
No. Nobody has put forward a motion.
Well, when or if, I'm not sure the procedure on that, but I would like to amend the agenda to not go move in camera and just approve the agenda as amended.
Thank you, Tyler. There is an amendment and motion on the floor. Yep. All approved? Oh, Allison.
Thought I had turned it on. Just knowing that Jenny had come in after the discussion to ensure that the capital plan was on the agenda, so that she is aware of what she's approving when she's voting for this motion, that she knows that that was added to the plan as well. So, the capital plan, because that was what was in the email that we all approved to have the meeting for.
So just to clarify, we'll have move-in camera out. The agenda will be School Construction Accelerator Program and Lethbridge School Division Capital Plan. Is that correct? Okay, Tina, you got that? Awesome.
Excellent. The motion is on the floor for an amended agenda. All in favor? All opposed? And it's carried unanimously. Thank you. Okay, as we gather today, we would like to acknowledge the traditional territories and oral practices of the Blackfoot Nations, which includes the Siksika, the Piikani, and the Kainai. We also acknowledge the Tsuut'ina and Stoney Nakoda First Nations, the Métis Nation Region 3, and all people who make their homes in the Treaty 7 region of southern Alberta. Okay, on September 18th, the Alberta government unfolded an $8.6 billion new school construction accelerator program. This program is will create more than 200,000 new and modernized spaces for students to learn, grow, and reach their full potential. And starting in budget 2025, Alberta's government will kickstart up to 30 new schools and as many as 8 modernizations and replacement schools every year for the next 3 years. And this was definitely welcome news to Lethbridge School Division, as we have projects in dire need of modernization that are captured within our 2024-2025 to 2026-2027 capital plan, citing factors of health and safety, environmental sustainability, accessibility, and providing appropriate learning spaces. And so currently the top 5 projects within our capital plan are Galbraith Elementary School, Mike Mountain Horse Elementary School, Park Meadows Elementary School, Nicholas Sharon Elementary School, and LCI High School. Okay, so this is up for discussion, and we are just going to be discussing today how this impacts our division and the action that we need to take with a tight timeline to apply for funding so that we can receive funding for modernizations for these schools. So I will open up debate and conversation. Allison.
I just want to seek some clarity. So you read the 5 schools, and then just wanted to seek clarity in that on the new school build side, if we can highlight that there is 2 schools on that are near the top. I think that they impact the conversation that we'll have today.
Thank you. Yes, we also have new Westside Elementary School as well as a new Westside High School. Thank you, Allison. Would you like to talk to them or should I? Okay, so I would like to open it up for conversation. Yes, so I welcome conversation to this topic. Christine Lee.
Thank you. Just want to give some context with the school accelerator program. The school accelerator program is kind of fast tracking how many projects the government is going to fund each year. So they're basically, the process doesn't change for how we, put in our capital plan, request our projects. They're just going to be allocating more funding to those, so being able to get to more of those projects quicker. So I just want to make that clear, because I think there was a comment about applying for the funding. We don't apply for the funding. They look at our capital plan for purposes of that. Certainly, we can, we've looked at putting in some pressure to request certain funds as part of that accelerator, but it really is just an acceleration of the normal process that they normally go under, and that they're just going to cover more projects, more new schools builds, and more modernizations.
Thank you, Christine. Yeah.
Can somebody summarize what she said? I'm sorry, I couldn't get clarity on everything she said.
Yeah, and Christine Lee, you may want to just turn your camera off, and maybe we'll get a little better audio, because it's a little garbled coming through. Yeah, so essentially, what I caught was that the school construction accelerator program is really just an acceleration of the capital plan process. So the two are aligned and married. And obviously, there's a lot of detail in our capital plan. So as we move, forward, saying we want to access some of the school accelerator program money, some of that information has already been shared with the government. It's not new. It's just saying, hey, reminder, we would like to access this money, and we think we should be able to access it through the accelerator program.
Jenny.
Christine Lee, I've got a question regarding our work at Galbraith. I know in 2024 we were approved for design stage funding, and in the announcement of the accelerated program, it was stated that approved projects currently in the planning and design stages can move forward to the next stage as soon as they are ready to do so. It also was announced that construction of schools can be projects to be approved in year for their next stage in the construction process without having to wait for the next budget cycle. And so can you give us update if we are still at that design stage with Galbraith, and if we are ready to move on to the next stage, and if that's something that we might be able to work toward for this school year, for the 2025 year?
Yeah, thank you, Jenny. We are we're currently design stage, so it's actually out of our hands at the moment. It's now being driven by Alberta Infrastructure. Alberta Infrastructure has procured a design consultant who will now start designing what the modernization will look like, doing the construction preparations and that sort of thing. And so once they're done, then we can get approved for to proceed to construction from the government. But it is no longer in our hands. It's now the government is fully funding that process. So once it's done, I'm not sure how long the design part will take. It could take 6 months. It could take 12 months. Once it's done, then they will then we don't have to wait again to another budget cycle of budget announcement. They'll be able to get us right into construction.
Anyone else? Oh, Jenny.
Sorry, can I ask a follow-up question on that? Are you able to give us any indication of typical or anticipated timeline, what historically that looks like when a school is sitting as well? I mean, when a modernization of that nature and magnitude is sitting at the design stage, can you give any clarity as to what that typically looks like in process?
So at design stage, they're actually figuring out how we're going to modernize. They're doing the scope. They're doing the construction drawings. So they're going to actually plan what the modernization looks like. We've had in when we were in planning, we actually engaged our school community to get some ideas on what that could look like. That's been given to the design consultants, and so once they do that, and that means like creating schematic design, creating getting it to construction, the construction design process. And then once that's done, and so that could take, like I said, I'm not sure how long this will take with this particular consultant. It's a very complicated modernization. It could, like I said, could take a year. Once they're done with that, then they go out to bid. Once we're approved for construction, they go out for bid for the construction proponent, and then they'll work through their processes, and then we then start construction. And this is a pretty complicated modernization. It could take 3 years in construction.
Thank you for that information.
Andrea, and then Allison.
Hi, Christine. If we apply through the accelerator program for more projects, it doesn't affect the Galbraith project then. Like it is already approved and we would get that money for sure.
You are correct. It would not impact the Galbraith project. We'd be asking for pre-planning money to start the process, because pre-planning is very, very early stages. It doesn't even lead necessarily to an actual awarded project down the road. But if you ask for pre-planning, particularly for projects that could have some complexity, it gets you started on looking at it, seeing if there's any issues down the road with site readiness or ability that might have complications in a modernization. So it's a great path to start on. Doesn't necessarily mean that a project would eventually come to fruition, but we would hope so, obviously. But that's kind of its very, very early stages.
Thank you.
Did everyone understand that? I just want to be clear. Okay, perfect. Allison.
I'm just wondering, I know in July of 2023 that our division sent a letter in requests for the pre-planning stages for the new West Side Elementary School. That was the top of our priority list. I'm just wondering what the response was for that pre-planning request.
Mike or Christine, are you able to answer this?
I did not hear back. And it's also in our capital plan, requesting pre-planning funds. And if I could, I want to explain a little bit about the capital plan submission process. Our very detailed document is just a supplement. We actually have to enter our capital plan in a computer system of the government's, and you have to rank them in priority, and you have to put in amount of details. And so with, of course,
Christine,
yes.
May I ask you to please speak a little bit slower? You're just coming across a little too garbled. I don't know if that's going to help.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Sorry, I'm just going to back up. We did request pre-planning funds. It's in our capital plan. It's in the online form that we have to complete. And it's so the government has that as a request as part of our capital plan.
So in the beginning, what I understood was application has been made, but we have not heard response. Am I correct in this?
That's correct. It's in our capital plan.
Okay, thank you. Are people, are trustees wanting something typed out on the side so we can, I'm trying to figure out how we can get that clear communication. Okay.
All right, this way, can you go ahead and talk?
Sure. So the capital plan, oh my goodness, I'm hearing myself. Okay, there we go. The capital plan. So the big document that we have is really supplements to what we have to put in. We actually have to enter our capital plan in a government programs called the WAP, and we enter it in and we put in our information, and in there as well we've put in that we've requested planning funds for our west side elementary school, so that we could start looking at, for instance, sites and things like that and site readiness. So that is already in our capital plan, and so that would be something they'd already have to take a look at.
Christine, where are we at with site readiness?
For a new West Side high school or elementary school?
Elementary school,
We do not currently have a site, but we've been talking with the city of Lethbridge, and we will be having some meetings with them coming up.
And is that the same for the high school?
That would be same for high school. Okay. We do not currently have a site.
Okay, thank you.
Jenny.
I think that's an important conversation for us to have as a board as well. I went back and listened again to the announcement that was made by our premier when this program was announced. And in that program, she called upon school boards to work closely with their municipalities to identify sites and begin the permit process. To initiate the permit process was specifically her wording. And with that was the emphasis that this funding is largely expected to be funding new builds. And so I think this is a significant portion of advocacy for our board this year, and it's something that is, in my perspective, is something that we are having to re-strategize around a little bit because we have new information. An extra $6.5 billion was announced. Previously announced was 2.1 billion in this space, and so we're now sitting at 8.6 billion dollars, and some of that will roll out over the next 3 years, and then there's an additional 4 years within that. But there was great emphasis on the need for new buildings and to increase capacity, and on the onus of school boards to work closely with their local governments, identify sites, and start that permit process. And yesterday we had the opportunity to have our mayor and one of our aldermen in the room when we had a conversation at one of our school councils. And one of the messages that was relayed at that time was a strong commitment from our local government in trying to support our schools and our school division and our school development, to the point even that it was communicated back to us that there's consideration of them making a motion and taking things up to the Alberta government themselves as well. And so with that, I see an alignment that is going to work very well between us and our local government. And I think, and I know the desire is here within the board as well. And I think that we need to, as a board, think about what that strategy is going to look like and how we are going to approach that to support the work in identifying sites. And I think we can anticipate great cooperation in trying to get the permit program started. And in doing so, we then meet the requirements outlined by the Premier to accelerate our division in accessing new funding and additional funding for new builds. And I would anticipate that we have an opportunity here to go aggressive and to request more than just our top #1 listed priority, but to look at, hey, we need a new elementary and we need a new high school. They serve different functions. We have both needs. And with that as well, we have the opportunity to advocate strongly for modernization as well. And so I just would call upon this board for us to take opportunity to develop and to work closely with our operations in trying to develop strategy and to really be advocates on this.
I'll just tell everyone. Yeah, and sorry to sort of jump in. I appreciate all of that, Jenny. I just wanted to let everyone know Christine Lee does have a meeting she needs to go to right away. So Christine, if we have more questions for Christine Lee, then this would be a good opportunity to do that.
Yeah, and Mike, can I just make a quick comment? I do want to assure you that I did reach out to the City of Lethbridge Planning Department, and we are working closely on the school site matters. So, I mean, because that is key, finding sites. So we are working on it.
Thank you, Christine, for that. And I know we have a strong relationship with the City of Lethbridge, and I know that you and your department advocate strongly for Lethbridge School Division and finding sites for our schools. So we do have confidence in the actions that you have taken and the ones that you will continue to take. So we thank you for that. Tyler.
Okay, we're 30 minutes in and we called a special meeting. Like, we need some actionable items here as to what we're doing. I don't know what we're doing right now. So it seems to me that part of the reason we're here is in regard to LCI and them wanting a modernization. And my understanding is that we have actually already submitted for pre-planning. Did we actually get that submitted, or are we just talking about submitting it right now?
Yeah, I've sent a letter requesting pre-planning.
Okay, so that is stage one of ever getting to a modernization. Until you have that, you're not doing anything. So we've got that done. That's good news. If we can get some pre-planning funding for that, that will really help us understand the situation at LCI, because this is a very complex school. It's a bit of a maze. It's probably going to be a modernization nightmare. So we need to figure out what our options are with that, and that will really help us in regard to, as well, our request for new Westside High School. So between those two coming together, that will help us to determine what the best path forward is in regard to high school. So I think if we've already done that, that's good. So what other actionable items are we here for? Because let's get to that so that we can make this meeting purposeful. Thank you.
Thank you, Tyler.
My question is for Christine Lee, because she's needing to go, you've spoken a couple times in regards to the new Westside High School, and you spoke a little bit in regards to talking to the city. I asked earlier, my question was in July 2023 with the pre-planning letter to Alberta Education for the elementary. Has there been a pre-planning letter sent to Alberta Ed for the new Westside High School?
It's in our capital plan as well.
Okay, okay.
Is this a question for Christine Lee?
A follow-up question.
Okay,
The question,
Jenny.
conversation on the table. Christine Lee, can you clarify that further? When you say it's in the capital plan as well, in what capacity is it in the capital plan?
It's when we complete the online form, we put in that we're requesting pre-planning funds.
So there is a request for pre-planning funds. Is that satisfactory?
Well, I'm wondering if you can clarify process for me a little bit, because we have the capital plan submission and then we also have these letters of request. Can you clarify process for me? What function a letter of request fills and how that works with the capital plan?
So the latest letter of request related to LCI, that came about through a conversation with Alberta Education. And I was explaining the complex nature of that modernization and our concern that the time it would take to get a project like that going because of the complexity. Whether it might be even a replacement school, we don't know because we have to study that. I asked, if there's any funds for that. He suggested I request pre-planning funds.
Allison?
Just again for that clarity piece. So when I look back at the annual report to the Board of Trustees on the Facilities Committee, it says in the capital plan section, it specifically highlights that the letter was sent July 2023 to Alberta Education requesting the need for pre-planning funds to begin for site investigation for the division's top new capital priority of K-5 elementary school. Is that same level? I know that you're saying that it's in the capital plan, but it was obviously specific to say that that letter was sent for pre-planning. Was the pre-planning letter sent for the high school?
We did not send a specific letter to the high school, no.
Okay, thank you for that clarity.
Okay, so I'm going to move on just because Christine Lee only has a few minutes. Our board has expressed desire to access as many funds as we are able to with this accelerated program. So I would like to pose the question to our executive and our superintendent of what is the plan that you have to access these funds. Yeah, if you could please speak to that. Oh.
I still have more. I know that Christine Lee is leaving, so I still have more in regards to the accelerator plan.
Okay.
So did you want us to ask at this point, or?
No, if you would like to continue that is fine.
So another big concern, and certainly was brought up when we were doing our...
Sorry, I can't hear you, Allison.
We're just trying to get rid of the echo on the phone.
So definitely a big concern for me, as well as I've heard from many in our community, and I know that other trustees, the concern is there in regards to accessibility. When I met this summer with Nathan Newdorf's office, it was definitely expressed in regards to the accessibility concern for 3 of our schools. So LCI, of course, we've heard that loud and clear. And then as well with our schools, Westminster, and as well as Senator Buchanan, the concern of accessibility. When we look at human rights, and I expressed this back when we were doing our capital plan in March, that needs to be a priority. It's not whether we decide or want to do it. It's a need, it's a necessity, it's a human right, right? And when I hear the Minister of Education speak and Alberta Education speak, and through the modernization, they have put a priority for health, safety, and compliance. And when I look at compliance, we are not in compliance with human rights for our students. Last night, I did have the opportunity to attend the LCI session and to hear a youth, I'm going to cry because she stood up there and could barely keep it together. We have a student that got up and spoke. She works for part of her work experience or part of one of her classes in the life skills program. And she spoke of having to assist a student to get around LCI school. And if our students are mortified with what their fellow students are having to deal with, we have a human rights issue. This shouldn't be that it's good. September 17th, that announcement was made. September 18th, this needed to be in. This is a top priority. It's not something that we should be putting aside. It is planning, pre-planning and planning. Letters need to be sent immediately today for those 3 schools, and our human rights need to be top priority for our students in our schools. I should not hear another family that says to me, I can't send my kid to LCI because my kid in the wheelchair can't get to class. They don't have accessible bathrooms. People come to our schools and can't do what they need to do to attend school, to come to meet with a teacher, to come to an office, to come watch their child in the gym. They can't. Our gym at LCI doesn't have accessible seating. Somebody in a wheelchair comes and sits, they don't have a safe place to sit in our gym. So it's not just educational, it is the extracurricular, but it is the well-being of our students. And if we don't put this as a priority, I am embarrassed to be sitting on this board not putting this through. Alberta Education said health, safety, and compliance. This needs to be through immediately.
Thank you, Allison. Christine Lee, I see your hand is up.
I just want to say that we are making it a priority, Allison. We had to submit our capital maintenance and renewal requests in August. They changed the date on us. We have, of course, we've been using our CMR for the Vic Park project, which is also an accessibility project. But we've also included on that list Senator Buchanan, Westminster for elevators. We've included LCI for an accessibility study and accessibility measures. I put in there for also LCI for a new gym floor. Boilers, we've got boilers at a couple other schools. So we've really beefed up our list because we want Alberta Ed to know that there's some issues that we need funding for in our schools. So we have done that. And then also we have engaged an accessibility consultant this summer. Mike and Daniel and I walked through LCI with the consultant talking about some of the challenges, because we did hear those challenges. We've just completed phase 1 of that review, which is kind of what are the easy wins, wayfinding, things like that. Then there's 2 more phases. And so depending on where we are in a planning process, how far we engage this consultant in the actual needs, if we're more into a modernization, we may not need to, but we've started that work because we have heard the concerns, Allison.
Allison, and then Andrea.
If I can just follow up, that I think that it needs to be then that we're requesting a study, that we need to be requesting a study and follow the funds that would be required to implement what the study finds.
Yeah, we requested funding for that too. Yeah, we've requested quite a bit. I don't have the dollars in front of me, but it was not just for the study. We requested it actually to improve accessibility at LCI.
Andrea, and then Tyler.
With what is being requested already, does that automatically go through to the accelerator program, or do we need to follow up with further letters?
No, we'll be looking at our capital plan, and that's what they'll be using for the accelerator program. And of course, any letters we add help emphasis. That's why we actually asked for sent the letter related to LCI because of the complex nature, asking for some planning funds. I've got a draft letter for some other modernizations that we can send, so we can get them on the docket for planning as well. So we're just supplementing what's already in our capital plan and kind of putting it in front of them. Like, don't forget, we have these needs.
I'd like to ask that we add Senator Buchanan and Westminster for elevators for those letters, please.
Well, that's already in our capital maintenance and renewal request.
So would we need to follow up with a letter by tomorrow for the accelerator plan regarding those?
No, they're separate from that. I mean, we could certainly, they're quite a ways way down on our capital plan, those two projects, because it's just elevators that we need. But, I mean, you can request it, but, I mean, that's up to you. We've got to be careful strategically how much we ask for.
Thank you, Christine. Tyler.
I'd just like to ask Allison if she could make some type of motion, actionable motion for what it is that you're looking for so that we can have that and vote on it and move it forward.
Okay. You can help me with wording, but so I would like that for the board to approve that LCI, Senator Buchanan, and Westminster be, just looking for my notes, sorry. Give me a minute.
Christine, I see your hand.
I think that Allison is preparing to put forth an actionable motion regarding specific schools. In the meantime, if the board will allow, I'd like to call upon action in a more broad sense from the board. I would like our board, and I don't know if this necessarily needs to be attached to a motion, but I would like our board to take a more active role and direct role in our advocacy, in the form of advocacy, so a more direct role in the process of applying for this funding, accessing this funding, a more direct role in accessing this funding through advocacy, which is appropriated in governance, and through strategic planning with our executive and with our operation and with our superintendent and his team. So I can put that into a motion, I guess. I would like to move that the board commit to working directly with our superintendent and his team in developing strategy and in developing advocacy for accessing these funds. And to give a little bit of background to that, which is out of order, I know. Tyler's looking at me like, come on, the motion's already on the table. But to give a little bit, I know, to give a little bit of background, we had our mayor in a room yesterday say that he's going to put a motion on the table. He's going to ask our city council to make a motion. We need to do our job. The government doesn't need to hear from everybody else and not us. So hearing from our operations team is vital and important, but if our government is hearing from our operations team, is hearing from our city, is hearing from our local representation in the form of MLA as well, but not hearing from us as a board, then I think there's a voice missing, and I want to show up.
Okay, so the motion of Jenny, commit to working directly with executive team in developing, strategizing, and developing, or in developing and developing strategy, developing advocacy, and accessing funds. Do I have that correct?
I think so. I did say directly with our superintendent, the most appropriate way for us to form a motion. So work directly with our superintendent in development of strategy for accessing and advocating for these funds.
Thank you. All right, the motion is on the table. I'll open it to discussion. Okay, all in favor? We're just waiting on Christina. All opposed? Oh, all in favor? That's an all in favor, Christina? Thank you. All right, so carried. Thank you. And it's great because this is what we're doing here today. So all ready for fulfilling this motion. Allison, do you have your motion?
I do.
Okay.
He's like dying to
Talk slow so we can get it down.
Okay. So my motion is that the division request accelerator program modernization funds specifically to address accessibility concerns at LCI, Senator Buchanan, and Westminster schools to ensure we are meeting the health, safety, and compliance requirements for our students, staff, and families when it comes to accessibility.
Compliance requirements
for our students, staff, and families when it comes to accessibility.
Thank you. I will open it up for discussion. Jenny.
Allison, would you be open to what is hopefully a friendly amendment in removing LCI from that request, being that, well, it is my intention to make motion that we move LCI on the capital plan and that we request that we start advocating for a full modernization of LCI rather than just accessibility. And so requesting funding for accessibility may be contradictory depending on where that goes. So I support the idea behind your motion. I'm hesitant on the LCI piece of that, depending on what the will of the board is to do with LCI. And so if you're willing to table that motion and allow me to put forth a motion about LCI ahead of time, then maybe that can inform the way I vote.
I will say Tyler, then Allison.
I would speak against the amendment. The timeline on a modernization is just, especially at that place, is astronomical. And until you get even to the pre-planning stage and see what comes out of the pre-plan, that's going to dictate everything that happens at LCI. I think then is time sensitive and imperative to people, and I think they should be on there now. And if in the meantime, before anything else happens at LCI, we can get some of those situations solved, I think that's the way to go. So for me, I would keep LCI in.
Allison.
And I would not, as much as you're a great person, Jenny, I would not consider it a friendly amendment. I think that they would actually go hand in hand, given that the motion that I have on the floor does not specifically say an elevator or X, Y, and Z. I think it could go easily hand in hand with a potential motion coming down the road in regards to modernization for LCI, that this would just be an additional piece. And it doesn't mean that this is done first. There's, as you heard Christine Lee speak, that there's those easy wins that can happen, that they would have access to the funds to be able to do the easy wins. And it's not dictating what actually needs to be done, except that we need compliance.
Jenny.
I appreciate that, and I can accept that. My question then would be regarding your motion. You've specifically requested that we access the funded program based on information that we received in speaking with an individual who is over facility operations for AHS in the South Zone. There's potential that there's funding for that is separate from other funding, and so could we add to your motion? That's something I think that we need to investigate and strive to understand better and do the work to find out if there is other pots that we can be advocating for as well. And so in your motion, can we add, I can't remember the exact wording of your motion, but the accelerated funding as well as any other applicable funding, so that gives us the room to go after what if there is other pots specific to accessibility. I think that we need to be going for those as well.
Thank you, Jenny. Craig.
Yeah. I'd like to make an amendment to the motion, not only for human rights, but safety. We've heard last night that safety is a big issue at LCI. They have 27 doors that they have to cover. And so I would feel that we should put in safety as one of our reasons for applying for that.
Thank you, Craig. In the motion, there, Allison did speak to health, safety, and compliance. So just to clarify that for you. Thank you. I know as a division, we value inclusion, and we want to create safe and welcoming spaces where every person can participate fully within the community. And as I've heard personal stories of because of inaccessibility, I know it's heartbreaking to hear the stories, and we are not in compliance. We are underfunded to provide compliance, and we do need to advocate for this funding. And I know that when I hear that kids have to walk around a building to get access, they have to park in the back to come inside. And it's truly undignified. And I think undignified is the word. And I don't think that that is an environment that we can be proud of. There are so many good things in our division, but I think those, to put individuals, students, family members, community members in that situation, which would be, undignifying, embarrassing, setting apart. It is just not right. And so I will support your motion, Allison, and I thank you for putting it forward. And I do appreciate the prioritization of the accessibility factor, because in all of our schools, we need that in all of our schools, because every parent, every student, every sibling, every staff member should be able to access and participate fully. Are there any other comments? Tyler?
Just a point of clarification, was that a friendly amendment to your motion from Jenny?
The last part, so what I wrote, and I'm fine for a friendly amendment is to add it to the end, just as well to access any other funds available.
All right. I think I have it down. We move that the division request accelerator funds specifically to address accessibility concerns for LCI, Senator Buchanan, Westminster Elementary, to ensure we are meeting the health, safety, and compliance requirements for our students, staff, when it comes to accessibility, as well as to access any other funds available. Do I have that correct?
The only thing that I would add is that the accelerator promotion funds, so it's very specific from Alberta Education that it's the accessibility piece, and this is like heard directly from Alberta Education and the Minister of Education that the accessibility piece would fall under that modernization fund. So I think we need to make sure we're requesting it from the exactly what they told us that requested under. So
You have that amendment, Tina, or that correction? Okay, excellent. Thank you. Okay. No more discussion? All in favor? All opposed? Okay, Christina Larkin is opposed. Thank you.
Apologies, but I have to run.
Okay, that's fine. Oh, you're in favor? Oh, sorry.
Favor. Yeah. Thank you.
I caught the delay. Unanimous in favor. Yeah. Thank you for joining us, Tyler. Okay, Mike, did you have something where you wanted to say?
Yeah, I just want to, before we go on further, one of the things that's been discussed is also a letter for Mike Mountain Horse, Park Meadows, and Nicholas Sharon. So I just want to make sure that doesn't get lost in the conversation. I know there's some other stuff the trustees would like to discuss, and that's fine, but just make sure we're on that too.
Jenny.
I would like to speak to the needs at LCI. We are advocating and have intention to advocate strongly for new school builds, and we're going to advocate hard to get everything. But the reality is, we do have to present things in the form of a priorities list. And so, ahead of our high school new build, we do have an elementary school new build, and that leaves us in as high schools are not found to be listed as a top priority in our capital planning, in the space of a number one priority or a number. I mean, it is a number two on the new build, but in the modernization list, we have our high school is found to be at the 5th position. There's challenge with that because we are facing capacity challenges in our high schools in Lethbridge, and at LCI we have several safety concerns, not just accessibility, and the accessibility is paramount for our students to have to leave the building and proceed through ice and weather and outdoors just to be able to come into another door all the way around the building so that they can access an elevator, so they can get to the 3rd floor, so that they can get to a staff bathroom that is the only wheelchair accessible bathroom in the school, is completely inappropriate and unreasonable. I appreciate the wording of it's undignified. And the limitations go beyond that, but we have several safety concerns there as well, and we've heard a lot from our staff, from our community, from our students themselves. There are several safety concerns. There are several utilization concerns as well. Every classroom at that school is currently being used, which means that the next teacher is going to be teaching from a cart. So the next time, and we anticipate and we receive continued growth every single year in this division. And so what is our plan? What are we going to do with more kids? We're going to rotate teachers. We're going to share classrooms. We don't have anywhere to put them. And so, as important as our other things are on our modernization project, the government is going to be hearing from us about LCI, and our capital plan needs to reflect our letters of request. We've already submitted a letter of request for pre-planning dollars for this. For this to hold weight, what we're submitting to our government in our capital planning requests needs to be aligned. We need to mean what we say and say what we mean. And so with that in mind, I move that we modify the current capital plan to move LCI from the 5th position up to second position in our modernization projects, and that we recognize, this isn't part of the motion, that's the end of the motion. But in that, I think that we need to recognize Galbraith Elementary is already on track for full funding. And so whatever is in our number 2 space is something that we have the opportunity to advocate for with anticipation of receiving funding based on this newly announced $6.5 billion. We should anticipate to get what we ask for. And this would serve our largest population of students housed in any one school in our division. It would serve, we have nearly 1,600 students there, which means this will serve potentially that many families. And it is one of our most expensive requests on our modernization project list. And so the opportunity and the timing seems ripe for us to make this a priority. And we've already identified and taken steps toward that. I think it's important that our capital plan reflect our actions.
Okay, I will open this up for discussion. Oh, go ahead, Allison.
So I would support that, moving LCI from number 5 to number 2 on the modernization list, with the clarity of knowing and understanding that our number 1 school build is an elementary school. Understanding that what we heard in the capital plan presentation in March is the dire need for high school spaces. We're currently sending 400 to 500 students from Chinook over to LCI. We have a high school issue, as well as we have growing elementaries that are exploding at the seams. But if we don't have and look at where our high school solution is going to be, we're going to be in trouble. So if we look at that Westside Elementary School as our number 1 new build, that's probably going to be 3 to 5 years out. And then we don't have something for high schools until after that. And then we look at our modernization list and it's elementary, 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 and we're not putting high school as a priority. LCI currently has 13% of our students attending their school. 1,600 students in our division go to that school every single day. Their families come there every single day. And we're not doing anything to assist in the building that they attend to every day. And to not only hear the stories last night, but to hear and know what I've heard over the last couple of years and experienced in regards to what happens at LCI when it's not just the extracurricular, it's the classrooms. And I don't understand because I'm not a facilities person, so I don't understand all of the stuff. But when we're talking about fume fans aren't operational, students in chemistry class aren't being able to have the labs that they would need to be able to access to meet curriculum requirements. This is educational. We need to be meeting the educational needs of our students. 13% of our students are in this school, and they're number 5 on our modernization list. Like, we won't none of the kids in kindergarten won't even see the changes that would happen at that LCI school. We have a dire need at that school that I don't see expressed in the schools that are sitting at 2, 3, and 4. And it's not about putting schools in comparison. It's about what are our dire needs, and what I'm hearing for our dire needs is the needs at LCI. When we do look at the athletics piece, to hear student after student come up and speak, coach after coach come up and speak and talk about the knee injuries of their students, the students that would, volleyball student got up and spoke about how they would have to sweep the gym before they could practice because they were concerned about what was going to happen if they tripped over what was on the gym floor. The lamps that we know for sure that a lamp or a piece of the ceiling fell and hard enough to dent the gym floor. I'm not hearing these same concerns for our other schools that are in different positions on our list. Going through to one thing that was really compelling for me last night to hear to think that staff felt compelled to come up to speak. They felt safe. They felt the need to come up and speak of the conditions that they're in. They spoke about our trades. We want to be able to offer opportunities. And one thing that I heard loud and clear is it's not build us a smaller school so that we can have, 700 kids in a school. It was, we want to keep our community. We want to keep this. We want to be able to provide these opportunities for our students. So when we look at the opportunities that they're providing for students that might go into the trades, we have the auto body shop there, and just some of the concerns in regards to the ventilation that's happening they have to make sure that they can't turn on a car and what that's doing to other students in the school. We want those opportunities to be there, but the safety of our students is top priority as well. And our staff are having to make those decisions every day, and they were compelled to bring those stories forward, knowing and risking what might happen when those stories come out. But we need to hear those stories, and we need to hear what's important to our families. And we've heard them over and over and over again. And as elected trustees, we have a responsibility to act. We have a responsibility with what we know to make the changes that we have the ability, when we talk about responsibility, the ability that we're given to make a change and make a difference when we've heard the information that we've heard. And it's not just last night, it's been over the years. It's not one teacher spoke about when they were there as a student, graduated 11 years ago, and there was something that had fallen from the ceiling in the gym back then. So it's certainly not a new issue or a new challenge, but it is important that we look at this. We had City Councillor John Milton Hope there, as well as Mayor Blaine Higgin, clearly spoke about, we need to make sure, and not whether it's just LCI, but that the importance of advocating, and that they would support, they would put forward a motion to be able to provide that backing that the city supports. Whatever it is, our decision is as a board to move forward, and I think that that's important. Probably one of the big things that I heard last night, besides all the safety pieces, is that community is so important. And the passion in that room, I want to just scroll in my notes to hear the people speak about, even with everything we have going on, we're here together. We're here, we're proud of this school, we have pride. The school's not going away. We want a modernization so we can continue to grow in who we are as LCI. Help us get there. And their cry was heard from every presenter that went up. The message was clear that we're happy to be here, we want to be here, but we also want to be safe. When they talk about 27 doors in a building, that's not typical that a school would have 27 doors. And when we talk about safety, to hear from administrators talk about how they need to have that sight line of where our students, what's happening, the office isn't within sight of the front door. You know, we had a family that spoke about coming from out of town, and they walked in the school and they had no idea where to go. And if a stranger walks in, they have no idea where to go. A student walks in, no idea where to go. There's so many ways to get in there. Of course, the accessibility issues and challenges, but I think it's that these issues can't be ignored. And I think that we need to make them a priority. And we need a high school solution. And I'm not seeing another high school solution. I do know that 2 modulars for Chinook, it will certainly help relieve some spacing concerns. But we need a high school solution. So I do support the motion that's put on the floor to move LCI from number 5 up to number 2.
Thank you very much, Allison. Craig. Okay.
Yes. I attend via Teams. I listened to that last night too. And one of my concerns is that the locations of our new elementary and new high school are in an area where they haven't even put in roads. And until those roads are put in and that development starts, those are just in the sky, pie in the sky things. We have capacity in our schools right now, even after we open the new school, that there is still room for growth for the other schools to take in additional students. There was a really good point that when Chinook opened up, LCI lost a lot of students. And I'm afraid that if we wait, we're going to have a downsized school. We're not going to have a school that will be able to give the same things that LCI does, the automotives, the shop, the art and everything. So I also am in favor of this motion of moving it up. We can't wait 5 or 6, 7 years for another school. And the growth of we only had a growth of 120 students this year. And I live in an area where the students have to be bused to LCI, and I don't think they would like to be transferred to a different school. They enjoy that school. They love it. And it's, as Allison said, there's a feeling of unity. People want that history. We have a historical school that needs to be modernized. I think it should be on our top, at the least number 2 or the top of our list, because it is imperative that we develop that school. And if you have a motion going forward from the city saying that they want to help us get that, then we need to be right there too. So I would support this motion.
Thank you very much, Craig. Andrea.
I had another commitment last night, so I really appreciate hearing those impassioned stories about LCI. I would definitely support moving it to the number 2 position, given that Galbraith is already well in the works. And thanks for sharing.
I apologize, I have to move online. But before I step out, can I just clarify in that motion, I'm referring to the capital plan that was passed in March. When that was passed, it was clarified for us that we have opportunity to make amendment to that plan up until November. And so I am referring to amending the current capital plan. Okay.
Thank you for the clarification, Jenny. Any other comments? I just can't see online right now if there's comments online. Okay. There are definitely significant needs. I think I agree we do need a high school solution. Christine Lee is in communication with the city of of finding land for our West Side High School. And I'm grateful for that. I know we just passed the motion to specifically address accessibility concerns and safety concerns for LCI, Senator Buchanan in Westminster, and I know those safety concerns capture a lot of what does need to be done. And part of the conversation is also our capital plan modeling our request. And Jenny, I don't know if you are able to speak to this, but LCI is being asked to be moved up. And Senator Buchanan in Westminster were put in the first motion for safety and accessibility concerns to be prioritized, and they are number 8 and number 9. So my question is, are there no accessibility concerns in 2 through 7, I guess I'll say, because we're addressing Galbraith. And so if we're moving LCI up, was there consideration for moving the other 2 up to match the request, or just LCI? I'm just trying to get
I appreciate the question, and would love to share my thoughts on that, because I did consider that for sure. I think that the difference that we're looking at is LCI has far more than just accessibility concerns. We have a high school problem as far as capacity goes, and LCI has operational and functional issues as well as accessibility, as well as safety. Last night we heard about toxic fumes coming from our, probably opening myself up to liability by saying some of the concerns we heard, but enough concerns that there is real concern for safety, as well as utilization of space, being able to meet kids' needs and function as a school properly should function. And so I fully support addressing our highest accessibility needs. But LCI, I'm looking for more than just accessibility. I'm looking for a full modernization. And I think that we need to be aggressive in accessing this money, and that I don't want to miss it. And so I support both actions as far as identifying those 3 schools for the accessibility specifically. That identification comes out of last year. I had the opportunity of sitting as chairperson of the facilities committee, and we had good conversation and extensive conversation regarding accessibility in the division, and those are the schools that are the concern. And so as far as accessibility goes, there was conversation at that committee as well in doing an assessment throughout the division of what the accessibility needs are. But as it stands now, those are the identified problems. And so as far as the needs at the other schools, I can't speak to that. We did have conversation about a need to gather that information. We don't have it at this point. And so I think that we've developed good strategy, and I think that these motions represent that strategy.
Oh, thank you, Jenny. I appreciate that. I know that we have spoken about the needs at Mike Mountain Horse, Park Meadows, and Nicholas Sharon, and I truly want to ensure that the communities within these schools, the staff, the students, the parents, don't think that we're putting them aside. And I think it's important that we speak to these schools as well, because a shift in the capital plan will be moving them down on the list. And so I think it's important to acknowledge these schools as well. And so within this conversation, I don't know if this is the right time to do it, but I would like to hear how the needs for these schools are going to be communicated as well. Would this be a good time to talk about that, or would you rather?
Yeah, it's certainly up to the board. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, we'd like to do that after the meal. Okay, that's fine. We can do that after. Jenny.
I think that that's a really important conversation. I'm not sure that it's directly linked into the motion. I know it is part of the conversation. I can understand the request. I'm wondering if the board would entertain the idea of calling to question the motion. I have to step out. Okay, thank you.
And I could suggest something else here before we get into question, that sort of thing. I don't want to jump in and interfere, but I'm seeing, so board advocacy, there's a motion for that. LCI, Senator Buchanan, Westminster, there's a motion for that based on accessibility and modernization. There's a motion about the capital plan to get it in alignment. There could be another motion related to Mike Mountain Horse Park Meadows and Nicholas Sharon as well, because it's a little bit of a weird situation. This is just my view. I'm not an expert on this, but the way I look at it is we've got the capital plan, which normally informs all of this process, but we've got this additional accelerator program where there's some opportunity to say to government, yes, it's in our capital plan, but we want to remind you of some things that we think are really important. I think we've got clear direction on the LCI, Senator Buchanan, Westminster. There's talk about how do we realign the capital plan so it's a little more aligned with what we're looking to do. And there could be, again, potentially, if the board wanted to consider that, a separate motion about Mike Mountain Horse, Park Meadows, Nicholas Sharon. It doesn't have to be that, but there could be that opportunity to have the discussion about those schools specifically. And do we look to use the accelerator program to try and access some funding there?
Thank you, Mike. All right, there's been a call to question. Okay, Jenny.
I appreciate that conversation. I think that needs to be separate conversation from this motion. And so, but because it's been brought up, it has to be responded to. So I think that this is totally separate from the motion on the table, but in response to that idea, that is something we've talked about as a board and brought up. It's something important. My response to that is we have to be strategic. We have to be strong in our asks. We need to not dilute our asks. We are asking at this point, should this motion pass, we are asking for a full modernization. And of course, that starts at the pre-planning and the planning dollars, and we know the process, but we are asking for that. We're asking for accessibility at 3 different schools, and we are aggressively asking for new builds, 2 new builds. And so my response to that would be, let's not dilute the urgency behind the things we are asking for. This is this accelerated funding is intended to be distributed initially over the next 3 years and then additionally into the next 4 years. And so those schools are important. They will remain on the capital plan. Let's get what we can get this year, and then let's continue to advocate aggressively and hard into next year. And so my response would be to those, let's go hard for those next year.
Thank you, Jenny. Allison.
But before you head out, Jenny, and I don't have your exact motion written out, but in addition to moving number 5 to number 2, could we add in there that the request would be for both pre-planning and planning funding and not just pre-planning?
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Can you amend your motion?
Yeah, I'll add that amendment. Does anyone have the wording of my motion? Let's just add, and in addition, we request both pre-planning and planning funding to dollars to support that process. No, to support a full modernization at LCI.
So I have moved to modify the current capital plan to place LCI from number 5 to number 2. In addition,
okay, let's say, and to request both pre-planning and planning funding dollars in support of a modernization of that school.
Request pre-planning and planning
for pulling that up.
dollars to support full modernization. Is that what you said? Or modernization?
Let's just go with modernization.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Motion is on. Any further discussion? All in favor? All opposed? Oh, Christina, you're freezing and not freezing. Oh, Christina's in favor. Unanimous.
favor.
Thank you. Thank you for typing that in.
Thank you. I'm
Excellent.
sorry
Thank
to be
you.
stepping out. I did have one more thing that I was going to do online, but I'll do it really quick if you'll allow.
Yes.
Okay. We had an individual last night volunteer services to assist us in, or to even, I don't know, it was a volunteer to support us, I would say, in recognizing areas for improved efficiency in the method by which we apply to the government for funding, and that individual recognized this may or may not be assistance that we're in need of, but I'm not making a motion, but maybe a recommendation that with all of this intention for us to be advocating and for us to be aggressively trying to access this funding for Lethbridge and for our division, that we consider as a board the employment or the collaboration with a individual who might, whether it's that individual or we employ somebody else, but that we consider the idea of accessing additional counsel or advisement in that process.
Thank you, Jenny. And I think we can leave it with our superintendent to look into that further and see processes, and if there are gaps that we're needing to fill as far as information to other grants that are out there, other grants and funding.
I have a lot of confidence in what our operations is doing. I think I'm meaning more to the board understanding the process and in the board becoming educated and more fully educated and more effective in our role in this. And so this would be, in my mind, would be something more directly work that the board would do in receiving that additional information and advisement and growth opportunity.
Thank you for clarifying that. Thank you, Jenny. I think we're good for now. We can hold that, and if we need further discussion, we can do that.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, thank you. No, you're great. Okay, there was conversation around further dialogue around Micah Mountain, Horse Park Meadows, and Nicholas Sharon, and so I am putting it out to the board if there is appetite to have dialogue around these schools and communication to the government regarding accelerated funding. And I know that Jenny just spoke her perspective as to having a very appointed and a strong voice going forward and not to dilute it. And so I'm just putting it out to the board if there is appetite to have more letters of advocacy go out. Andrea.
I would agree that we should have letters of advocacy around this for everyone on our capital plan on both sides.
Thank you. Mike, would you like to speak to the memos that you've presented and what those letters could be, or how would that conversation go regarding advocacy, continued advocacy for those schools on the capital plan, and would you, how would they be included as we apply for the additional funds?
Well, I think the question is ultimately, it's already in the capital plan. There's going to be an amendment in the capital plan. So the accelerator program and the capital plan are not two separate things. Just the question is, and before tomorrow, because we understand there's some planning happening, do we want to do, because really what we've done is we've got a capital plan. that information is in there. And then we've also augmented that with some specific letters, and we've asked for some, you've given some direction today about LCI and Senator Buchanan in Westminster, so we can certainly do that. And then, another option is, it's already in the capital plan, those schools, so they're still in there, but there is an option to, because we know there's a little bit of a window here, do we want to write a letter there as well and say, and I think it's important to keep them separate, not put them all in one package, because I think it was very clear to me, and certainly that's the way I view it too, is that these are different asks. I think, Allison, you were really clear on LCI, Senator Buchanan, and Westminster, how those schools come together. And to me, that makes lots of sense. When I look at Mike Mountain Horse, Park Meadows, and Nicholas Sharon, those are different projects. And so again, that makes sense to sort of, if that's the will of the board, to do a letter, because there is always the question, how many letters do you send, that sort of thing. What's the right decision to make on that? We just know and that's part of the reason why we're having a special meeting this morning, is we know there's a bit of a window to provide a little bit of maybe further clarity and guidance in terms of where we're at.
Okay, I'm just going to read the motion. Christina's put a motion forward online. Christina would like to move that the board support executive to continue to advocate as required for necessary funding for the identified modernization needs as articulated in the capital plan, including Mike Mountain Horse, Park Meadows, and Nicholas Sharon Elementary School. Thank you, Christina. I'll open that up to discussion. Allison.
I appreciate that motion and the sentiment of why we would want to put that forward. I'm looking, I think, for some more information, if you can share, Mike, on each of these schools, and what would be the compelling reason that they would, or that we should be advocating. I think that, listening to Jenny speak in regards to the diluting, and we want to ensure that when we look at our dire needs of our division, and I'm just looking for some, what are those compelling pieces that we can be putting forward that would, we'd be able to share of what's going on at those three schools that's compelling for us to know.
Yeah, and certainly some of that detail will be in the capital plan. So my understanding is, we're looking at particularly the age of the buildings, and we're starting to see the potential for failures in some, potentially critical systems, that sort of thing. And then like any other school, any of the schools that we talk about, some opportunities to change the space, for better student movement, better sight lines, those sorts of things would be some of the key factors. Mike Mountain Horse, my understanding, is a little bit different. Their situation is they've got a number of portables there that are reaching end of life, as you know. And also they're going to have a boundary change with the new West Side Elementary School. So there's potentially an opportunity to some of those modulars are going to have to be taken off because they're just end of life and they're falling apart. So there's some opportunity for that. We're also applying for that funding elsewhere as well. We're, certainly looking for multiple streams. Yeah, so I know that's pretty general, but that's my understanding, is it's primarily those modernizations, and I certainly stand to be corrected, but my understanding is they're primarily about the life cycle of the building, and those buildings getting old and starting to see some of those challenges related to that.
Allison.
When we voted for the capital plan in March, I did not vote in favor of the capital plan. I strongly believe that the capital plan doesn't reflect what those needs are to the level that is being presented from other schools within our division. And for me, I feel I need to be making an informed decision when I'm called to the table to make a decision. And I don't feel that I've been informed with information that would put these with dire needs. And when we look at what are our dire needs, this accelerator program is available for 3 years. It's nothing to say that those aren't the schools that we would put forward in year 2 of the accelerator program. Hopefully that there would be some more compelling information come forward to provide me with information that I've needed as we approved that plan in March and as I worked through presenting that plan, ensuring that the information is there so that we can be making informed decision, I think is important. And without having the information to make an informed decision on those schools, I can't support that we would, that I can't support the motion that's on the floor. Not that there's no respect. No, I cannot. And not because I don't respect those schools and that they have needs, but I think that we need to be looking at the dire need, as Jenny reiterated, and that we're putting forward what we have liability issues. We have challenges. When we look at the LCI, the second motion that we passed, those are huge impacts to our students. I want the government to hear clearly that this is what we need. I don't want you to say, okay, we're going to give you, 20% to each of these 5 projects that we're now putting forward. I want the pieces that we're putting forward to be given the most weighting. Students at a number of these elementary schools come into our high schools, right? Those students may get to experience in their lifetime the changes that are made to our high school. 13% of our students attend LCI. Those students that are at those schools will hopefully get to experience those changes. And I think that we need to look at getting more information on the 3 schools that are presented so that we can know what some of those pieces are. But at this point, I do not support the motion that's on the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Alison. I'm just going to read what is in the chat from Christina Larkin. To me, this is simply about clarifying that the board continues to actively support the other capital requirements. I do not suggest in the motion that the advocacy is a letter or other specific action beyond existing methods that Christine Lee mentioned, which would allow executive to act as required and is politically available to secure funding based on the priorities articulated today, while keeping these other modernizations on the table. Advocate as required would keep it on the table without requiring executive to do it all this year, for example. This would keep our stronger advocacy for the areas around accessibility that we've said today, but would just articulate today that we have the approved capital plan that the executive continues to use. More of an informative motion to close the loop that we've started today. Thank you, Christina, for that clarification. Jenny.
Sorry, I don't know why I'm now only on Teams audio. Sorry, I can't take my hand down even. Sorry, but I would agree with some of the sentiment that has been shared that we need more information to build a more compelling case for the modernization of those schools. Having sat on facilities, can you hear me?
Yes, we can, and we see your words at the bottom.
Oh, okay. Having sat on facilities committee last year, there wasn't detailed conversation of why those schools are listed there. There wasn't a lot of anticipation that we would get funding beyond our number one ask. And so we didn't dive into the details of why those are on there to a very extensive conversation. And so my awareness of those is that those are there because of the age of the building and where they fall in the cycle of upkeeping with buildings. And so I know that there is need there, and I don't intend to discredit that at all, but I want us to make strong requests and compelling cases for what the needs are in our schools. And I think that we need to build that for the requests for those schools. And then I'll just reiterate, there is urgency in some of these other things. And so while they all are important, I think that strategy, it's not a matter of what is more important than something else. It's a matter of strategy to me. And that would be making the asks this year and then looking at those schools and making a strong, fully informed ask next year.
Okay, thank you, Jenny. And I do hear advocate is required as enabling our executive to just continue to do the work that they do and not necessarily prioritizing, but not forgetting either and seeking funding in other avenues. And so I also am cognizant to not hamper that work. We did approve the capital plan regardless of whether or not people feel fully informed now. We approved it. And so as a board, we do need to stand behind it and stand behind our now amended one. And so I would support the motion in that it enables our team, our operational team, to do the work that they need to do. And I do not see it as watering down the priorities that we've set today as a board. Craig, you have two hands up somehow. I'm not sure.
No, Jenny had number one. I'm number two. I'm trying to understand that. I think I would be more comfortable, and it might come as a friendly amendment, but to instruct the facilities committee to work on this next year of giving us more information on the reasons why Nicholas Sharon, Park Meadow, and Mike Mountain Horse need to be in the top 5. We don't have enough information for that. We know why we voted LCI up, but it would be nice to have the facilities committee look at those 3 and give us more information during this year so that we can then make a better decision. And I'm not sure if that's what Christina wants as part of her motion, or if that could be amended to that. So I'll leave it up to everybody else to discuss that.
Thank you, Craig. Christina, do you have oh, she's typing, so we'll wait for her response. I won't speak on her behalf. Jenny, is that a legacy hand or is your hand up again?
Sorry, I've been kicked out of the actual Teams meeting and now I'm on a Teams audio on my phone. And so I tried to rejoin the meeting, but it wouldn't let me. So I don't have a way to take my hand down. Sorry. And I'm driving, so I can't really.
Okay, so if you need to chime in, Tina, can you put your hand down? Are you able to do that? And if, as you are driving, drive safe. And if you need to speak, just chime in.
Okay, thank you. Sorry.
Right in the middle, Tina. Can you please close the side? Oh yeah, there it is. Okay, we need to wrap this up. Can you go down, please? I think the board can request more information about capital plan for sure. I'd add the friendly and request additional information about rationale for capital plan priorities. So that is an amendment to the motion. Okay, no more comments. All in favor of the motion, of the amended motion? Oh, Craig's back. Okay. Yep. All in favor of the amended motion? Jenny, would you be in favor of the amended motion? Motion, not a motion.
Sorry, I lost audio for a second there.
Sure, we have a motion on the table. Christina's motion. Can you scroll up, please, Tina? Can you go up? No, go up. I just need to see your motion. That the board support executive to continue to advocate as required for necessary funding for the identified modernization needs as articulated in the capital plan including Mike Mountain Horse, Park Meadows, and Nick Sharon. Can you please scroll down, Tina, all the way to the bottom? And then it has been amended to include request additional information about rationale for capital plan priorities. So the motion is on the table. All in favor of this motion? Craig, your hand is up. Jenny, are you in support of this motion? Not in support of this motion. I can't see you.
I'm going to not support this motion. The way it's written, I'm not sure what that advocacy means.
Okay.
So, I mean, yes, I will continue to advocate, but what does that mean? And so, the intention behind it, well, from what I gather, I'm not going to support it, but of course I will continue to advocate for those schools. I'm going to advocate for us to try to get modernizations and I'm looking at a longer time frame on that one.
Okay, thank you, Jenny. Christina, I can't see you. I can't go on an assumption that you're supporting your motion. Okay, thank you. All opposed? Allison and Jenny are opposed. Thank you. It is carried. Okay. I believe that brings us to the end of our special meeting. And thank you for gathering. I will adjourn us at 10:19 a.m. Thank you.